Thanks for listening to our podcast, Living Life with the Rogers. My name is Cameron.
And I'm Kira, and this is a lifestyle podcast where we talk about hashtag all the things. Listen in.
Hello, listeners. We are excited to bring you a new episode of Living Life with the Rogers. And today, I'm going to let Kira kick it off for us.
We are going to be talking about communication. So do you remember when we were going through our premarital counseling and our pastor at the time, Ryan? Why am I always shouting out Ryan? He's just a wealth of wisdom. We need to get him on the pod. He was like, listen, I think the most important thing about marriage is going to be the way that you communicate. And we have had lots of experience in how many years we've been married? 11?
You wonder how many hours we've spent talking to each other. That's going to be a scary high number.
Well, and your word count versus my word count, a little bit off. I am a woman of few words. When I speak, it's good, but...
Oh, please. Everything that I say is liquid gold, and you just ramble. I know where you're going
Well,
with
let's
this.
just talk about that.
I know why you wanted to bring up this topic. It's all coming together. So, give you behind the scenes, listeners, as we kind of have a quick conversation about topics, a little planning meeting, and Kira was pushing this agenda really hard, and now I'm starting to see why. I think this is a roast of Cameron today.
Just starting off the bat, there are two type of processors. There's an internal processor and there's an external processor.
Are we talking computers or people?
People.
Okay.
And Cameron is an external processor, so that means for him to process his thoughts and get what he wants out, like communicated, he has to say it out loud and process it with somebody, whereas I'm an internal processor, so I need some quiet time. I need to think through it before I speak, and so it's just the nature of our relationship that you end up speaking more words because you're trying to externally process.
Oh, and sometimes I can run into that whole word vomiting situation. And there's been many times where I'll have two thoughts going on in my head at the same time. And then I'll combine those thoughts together, and it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, and I think we'll start with marriage, then maybe move into family a little bit. But in marriage, I remember being given the advice that you don't want to make your partner be a mind reader. Like, it's better just to get everything out in the open than try and make your partner guess on what is going to make you happy or what's going to please you or, what's going to be best for you. Because it's like, listen, if you know, ain't nobody got the time to be like trying to guess what's inside your brain. Like, just help a brother out and just tell him straight up.
Well, it's kind of like, since we have so many kids, I'll sit there and one of the kids will have a meltdown, and then especially our youngest who can't really talk yet, and she'll make all these noises and she'll just cry and cry and cry, and you're trying to guess what she wants. You're like, here's your pacifier. Nope, that's not making you happy. Do you want a TV show? Nope, that's not making you happy. And you just keep going down the streak of what's going to make her happy. Well, that's exactly what you're talking about. Just spit it out and tell us what you want.
And I feel like you end up wasting a lot of energy. Like, early in our marriage, you were trying to do like surprises for me and, trying to be thoughtful, like surprise me with gifts and all these things. And it was like, I had a certain thing in my mind that I wanted. I'm a little bit particular when it comes to like gifts and all of that and what I do and how I spend my time and money. So it was like, it was better if I just told you what I wanted, and then you still had to put in the work to execute it, go plan it, buy it.
Yeah, I had to be a keyboard warrior and and look it up and actually.
But you were just wasting so much time and money trying to like do these things that you thought I would like. So it was like, it was A for effort, but it just missed the mark. And it's like, okay, well, I could just tell you what I want, and it will just save everybody a lot of time, energy, and resources here.
But what about people that like surprises?
Yeah, that's a little different. I guess there are people out there that do like surprises, and good luck to their partner on trying to figure out how to please them.
Yeah, but you know what? That communication comes in perfect, because don't wait like a day before the birthday and be like, hey, can we talk about what you would like for your birthday? But you can get to know each other's interests and what you like, and have that conversation. Keep that in the memory bank, and then when your birthday comes, you're ready to go.
So how do you feel if I have a problem with you, or I have something that we need to communicate about, and I call you out in front of a group of people?
Wow, not very good. That's happened. I mean, we pretty much have done that to each. We've done just about everything that we shouldn't do to each other at one point in time, and that's happened. I've done that to you. You've done that to me. It makes me feel very belittled, really angry, and I just want to disappear.
Yeah, so I think like it's better like if you have a riff with someone, like don't be passive aggressively calling them out or saying snarky things in front of other people. Like save it for a time where you can have a private moment. You know, just the two of you, and then like even then it's like learning how to communicate frustrations is it's an actual skill. Like it takes practice because you a lot of times we just want to come fly off the handle and say exactly what's on our mind, and that can be that just breaks people down. It shuts them down, makes them feel attacked. When it's like, no, let's try and be choosy with our words, and we always try and like affirm each other before we give each other like feedback, because then the other person's feeling like, okay, you're on my team here, let's like work out this problem together, instead of you just like coming at me and pointing out all my flaws and attacking me.
Exactly. So a little bit of affirmation, and I like your point. Remember, you're on the same team, and I'm a big fan of hockey, and I've seen line brawls. I've seen just about everything. And actually, when I was playing on my rec league, I remember being on a team that we started verbally assaulting each other, and then there ended up being a fight on our bench. So typically, you're supposed to fight the other team, and so having that mindset in any friendship, marriage, in the family dynamics, that are you on the same team? Remember what team you're on, and try your best, because that's usually the first person you fight with are those that you love the most and those that you care for the most, because you let your words come out unbridled, and you just hurl arrows. And you expect those that love you to just take those arrows continually. And that's a broken system, and that's a system that's going to leave you lonely.
Bring it back. I swear, we should do a whole episode just on what we can learn from kindergartners, because they used to say, we've talked about like all these kindergarten phrases that people seem to have forgotten over the years, but another one is like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. And that is so untrue. People are constantly hurt by others' words. And I think it's because we are so attacking, we are so negative. We've recently had the conversation about parenting, like when another person wants to point out something that we could be doing better in parenting, instead of saying you, we've started using the word we, because it's like we are both parents, we're in this together, we're one family, we're trying to be a united family. So when you say things like you do this or you need to do that, it's just it makes you feel like you're not a valued part of the family, right? It makes you feel like what I'm bringing to the table is not enough. I'm not enough. I need to get better. Like it's, I'm bringing this family down, and nobody wants to feel like, it just makes people feel like crap, honestly, about themselves.
Well, and piggybacking off your point, yeah, you don't want to feel isolated and alone. And another way to prevent that from happening is to call yourself out too. So I'm a big believer in pushing humility and showcasing where you've gone wrong. And I'll use an example. I got woken up a couple nights ago, and you don't want to wake up Papa Bear. Let's just put it that way. I was pretty angry, frustrated. I acted dumb and said some choice words and lost my cool, lost my temper. And so it was. Now I've learned over the course of time to have the humility to call myself out, apologize to everybody. I sat them down. I shared where I went wrong, why I went wrong, what I should have done instead. And this is twofold. So yes, I have to do my part of apologizing and, speaking truth and letting everybody know where I went wrong. But then it's important that once I've shown that vulnerability, for the rest of the family members not to kind of bury my face into it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think an apology is so underrated. Like, obviously, we're going to try and be kind and respectful and uplifting with our words, but that's not going to happen all the time. And I think just apologizing to your kids is so powerful, because I think a lot of times kids are made to feel like, oh, they're small, they're not smart, they don't know what's going on. Like, kids are belittled a lot, and so when you apologize to them, it shows them like, I respect you as a human, and I care about your feelings, I care about your opinions. And we'll even say like, do you forgive me? And of course they always say yes. Like, the kids are like the most easily they forgive people so easily.
If only we all had a child's heart.
Yeah, but it's like, an apology makes such a difference in like when our words miss and hurt. It just heals so much, I think it prevents a lot of resentment in relationships when you just show the humility and apologize. And again, what Cameron was saying is like not shoving your people's face in their mess, because it's like, again, we're not trying to tear people down here. We're trying to uplift people with our words is the goal.
Well, it was funny. A couple days ago, we were talking about something going on in the neighborhood, and Abby was dead right, and she was like, "Oh yeah, this is what's happening, and this is why." And I remember, I think we both looked at her. We were like, "No, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's not right." And then like an hour later, it was confirmed that she was right. And so of course, hey, Abby, do you remember what we were talking about earlier? Yeah, you were right. Mommy and Daddy were wrong. You're like, sorry we didn't trust you. Sorry we didn't believe you and stuff. So like calling ourselves out, and I mean, you should have seen her face light up. The idea that like she just felt so empowered. It was adorable.
Well, and it's amazing how much you can uplift someone by just giving them like a compliment or something. And then on the opposite end, we've experienced this even in Cali sports, like when people who are in charge just don't speak kindly to, and it just shuts them. I mean, you can see like body language change when people are hurtful with their words, and then it's like the complete opposite. It reminds me of like a sunflower. So it's like when the sunflower's away from the sun, that's what damaging words do. It's like the flower gets all like sad and like wilts over, and then when it's facing the sun, it's like it brightens up, it's more yellow, like it just looks alive. And it's crazy that words have that power to either completely shut somebody down or completely open and brighten them up.
Yeah, I found this little research. It's like Dr. Emoto or something. I think he's a scientist from Japan, and he did this rice experiment. And some people are saying it's a flawed study. I'm like, okay, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's a great story. So you basically take two batches of rice, you cook them the same, you put them in a jar, you speak kindness to the one, and then you speak words of hate to the other. And the one that you speak kindness to, the rice stays white in color, and the one you speak anger and mean things to starts turning, different colors, like a darker color. And I feel like that's the same thing to us in our souls. It's this it's hard to see on the outside. It's not like every time you say something unkind to me, I lose one of my hairs, or I add a wrinkle to my face. But in our souls, it's being affected, and it's either being affected in a positive way, a building up, encouraging way, or it's being affected in a darkening, rough situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we try and use a lot of language like, this is how you're making me feel, instead of like accusing. So we'll say like, hey, when you do this, it made me feel this way. Like, can we figure out like how we could do this a different way? So that kind of helps. Again, you're trying to keep the defense and the attack low so that the other person is actually receptive of your feedback, and you can make some changes within your relationship and grow the relationship. So I think using words like I feel like this when or this affects me this way, it helps the other person, because we've been in so many situations where like we're just coming from a complete opposite side, and it's very hard to get someone else to see your side, especially when they are very stuck in, oh, this is my perspective, it's the right way. And it's so you have to do everything you can. Cam's big on like using like analogies. Like he'll be like, well, you see in construction I have to tear it down.
There's always so many stories. I've learned so much in construction, so much about life.
But the whole point is you're trying to like paint a picture for somebody. You're trying to be able to get them to understand where you're coming from when they are coming from a very different perspective. So if you just go straight in and say you're wrong, you did this, like good luck. Like that's what shuts communication down.
Bring the construction. It's like doing a demo with no plan to rebuild. So what's the point in that? And everybody in the world is great at demolition. I mean, the world is just gifted with that skill. There's only so many people that are able to build it and put it back together, and not only put it back together, but make it better than it was before. That's the real skill.
Yeah, it takes a lot of patience to communicate effectively, I
Well,
think.
and I think in like relationships and friendships, that's why I go on piggybacking off of humility. When you're in a relationship, marriage, friendship, etc., where you have proven to call yourself out and your flaws and your weaknesses and your shortcomings, then when it's time for you to challenge somebody else with theirs, you've proven yourself to be somebody that's honest, open, and it's fair. So if you're just somebody who's always pointing out the flaws in everybody else, and even in a friendship circle, people notice that. So if you're calling everybody else out and then you're building yourself up during the whole process, well, you've kind of unwarranted your advice, and so people will stop listening to you and tuning into you, right? So it's got to come full circle, right?
Yeah, that's good. So we talked a little bit about the benefits of communication, how to effectively have communication. What happens when people just don't communicate, period?
It's like a current, and that current is going to take the one person one way, and a different current is going to take the other person the other way. I feel like this is twofold. Not talking can be damaging, but not talking at a right time can be a gift from the good Lord. So we learned very early on in our marriage that
what's that stupid piece of advice where they're like, don't go to bed angry, always work it out.
Don't
that.
let the sun go down on your
No.
anger. I thought you were saying no, that I'm wrong. I'm like, oh shoot. But basically, in the Christian circle, it's like, well, don't go to bed angry. Right. And so a lot of people, and we did this in our marriage early on. We would sit there and we got to hash this out.
And then we're fighting till like 3 a.m. just going in circles, tearing each other down. Like, it would just
because we're
nowhere.
tired.
Yeah. Sometimes you hit a topic so hard and you're so exhausted. It's like you just your brain shuts down, and it's like, how the heck are you supposed to see someone else's perspective and have empathy towards them when your brain is literally not functioning anymore? We run into this with our kids when we're trying to like explain or teach them. If they're tired, forget about it. Their brains are done. Like, they are literally not processing anything that we say, so it's such a waste of time. So like, we've learned, if emotions are heightened, and if we get to the point where we are saying very unkind things to each other just to hurt and attack, we're like, you know what, we need to bag this. We will all get some sleep, and the next day, then when we're refreshed and we have a fresh perspective, our emotions have calmed down, the conversation goes so much better.
Yeah, little sleep. If you're tired, just go to bed. And hey, I just turn around. I'm like, I'm frustrated with you. Love you. I'll see you in the morning. And you just move on. And the same thing with kids. Sit there. Hey, can we circle back on this at breakfast in the morning? And you just circle back.
Yeah, and we do little, like, what do you call them, like a team meeting or like a team powwows. Like, sometimes when we're just like, everyone's being mean to each other, we're saying things that we don't mean, and everybody's
family
off.
meeting.
Yeah, we'll come together and be like, all right, what are you feeling frustrated about? What are you feeling frustrated about? And then how are we gonna move forward? But yeah, I think when people don't communicate, like, at first you don't maybe necessarily feel the effects of it. You're like, okay, but as time goes on and people continue to hurt each other and not let the other person know and apologize and own up for it and try and make it right, it just builds this like slow wedge. And then eventually the wedge becomes a mountain. And we've literally seen it rip families apart because there's so much built up tension, so much built up resentment that you can't even be around that person and have a genuine connection or happiness to see them. So I think it's dangerous in marriage, families, and relationships. I think it applies to all of them, is when you're not being honest with someone and really expressing to them, like, things that maybe need to change or ways that they've hurt you, it will end up tearing the relationship apart, unfortunately.
Well, and you go into the why, and again, the Christian community is so guilty on this. We hear sermons all the time about grace and love and grace and love, and grace and love is shoved down our throat. Oh, so we think being a good Christian means you just take all the arrows and you just grace and love it. And it's like, okay, there is some truth to grace and love. But here's what happens. So somebody hurts your feelings, damages you, shoots an arrow at you. Then, you decide, all right, well, I'm just going to grace and love, and I'm just going to let this thing go. What you really, in another way you're saying, is I'm just going to not do anything about this. And I'm going to bury it deep, deep down. And what ends up happening is before you even realize it, you build this anger and resentment towards that person. And it just keeps building and building and building and building. And honestly, the devil knows what he's doing, and that's what he wants to happen. He wants it to build up, and he wants it to get worse and worse and worse, to the point where just even the sight of that person just upsets you. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point, is maybe there are times where you can forgive that person through your prayer time, through your quiet time, through your reflection time, I'll tell you from my experience, about 80% of the time I've had to talk to that person. Only about 20% of the time was I able to just be like, you know what, that wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe I was tired when I heard that. Maybe I misunderstood what they were trying to say, and I understand they were saying it out of love. So only about 20% of the time could I actually just let it go, forgive them, and move on. 80% of the time, at least, we had to have conversation. Can I talk to you real quick? This is what you said. This bothered me. Or can I understand why you said it? Or can I understand where you're coming from? Because I didn't understand that. And you'd be surprised, those conversations, pretty much like the greater majority of them end up unbelievable. They end up life-giving, and you take something that was damaged and you make it grow.
It brings you together instead of tearing you apart. I think it comes down to like minor offensive and major offensive. So like minor offenses is where we grace and love it, right? We're like, if it's something that happens a couple weeks later, we're not really thinking about it anymore. We're like, oh, that was just, it was just a little something. I'm going to show that person grace and love. Like, that's great. But then major offenses, I can't speak, are things that we're still kind of reeling about months later. Like, if it keeps coming up, it's like, okay, I think that's God's way of saying, listen, I really want you to have a conversation with this person. I want you guys to clear the air. I want you to show each other. Like, that is being loving, bringing something to someone's attention and working through it, apologizing, showing empathy, because you are growing your relationship instead of letting it tear you apart. So I think grace and love, sometimes it just gets a little bit misconstrued because we're just supposed to let everything go. And honestly, like, there are things that people just, they can't. They need to hash it out with someone. They need to hear an apology. They need to express how they feel in order for them to be able to love them well and continue to be in relation with them. So it's like, yeah, minor offensive versus like major offenses, and when it needs to be talked about.
Well, and then let's talk about the not fun topic of what about somebody that just is foolish. And if you're in a friendship relationship with somebody that will not heed any advice every single time, all they do is shoot daggers, and every single time you've tried to show them love, you tried to show them grace, you've tried to actually have a conversation, and it's not going anywhere. There are plenty of those people out there, and it's hard. And there's two ways to look at this. Those people are most likely very, very damaged and hurt themselves, and they have a lot of baggage they haven't scoped through. And so maybe that's, your call is to help them navigate that. But here's the big warning in that. Most people like that don't want to be fixed. They don't want to get better. And so all you can do is pray behind the scenes for that person, because it's just going to bury you in all the same muck that they're trapped in.
Ooh, does that lead to my favorite word? What's my favorite word right now?
I'm nervous. I don't know.
Starts with a B.
How about a B? What?
Really?
No.
It's like my buzzword. Boundaries.
Okay. All you're big on is that lavender and Vicks sniff thing.
It's not lavender for love. We talked about this on the
eucalyptus.
Thank you.
Whatever.
We talked about that on the... Yeah, boundaries. Ooh, I love that word. It's so good. And it's just, and again, it comes down to like, okay, you've tried, like you've given this person a solid 3 times. Maybe you even like brought somebody else in to mediate, and they are just showing that they don't respect and love you enough to put in the work to grow the relationship and own up to what they've done. And then that's where we get to put up a healthy boundary, and we get to say, I love you, but I can't be in relationship with you right now because I have to protect my peace and my sanity and my family. So I am going to just step away, give myself some space, and do what I need to do in order to take care of me and my family. And that is perfectly okay. I don't think we talk about boundaries enough in the faith. It's like you're just supposed to keep taking it and taking it and taking it. And then people are just these disheveled, broken, they're like shells of themselves because they've taken so much abuse and so much manipulation. And I do not think that is what God wants. He wants us to live a whole, healthy, happy life. And so if there are people that are not doing their part to live like him and put in the work to grow themselves and become a better person and to become more like Jesus, then that's when I think it is perfectly okay to put up a little boundary.
I want to get back to like what the disciples used to do is they would go into a town and they were told to, preach and teach the word of God. But then if the people rejected that word, they were called to kick the dust off their sandals and then move on. And for whatever reason, us believers sometimes have forgotten that. We're just like, oh, you're supposed to just keep soliciting advice, keep soliciting, keep. One day you'll break them down and they'll listen. And it's like, no, if they're not listening to you, there's a reason. There's a stronghold there that's not allowing that to break the message to break through. So let's get back to our Birkenstocks or whatever, the leather sandals. Kick the dust off our feet and move on. It's time to move on, and that's setting a healthy boundary.
And it could just be for a season too. Like it could
Yes.
just be like, hey, just for now, like until you figure this out, or you can like process what I'm saying and show some humility and come back to me and make some improvements. Like it could be a temporary boundary. Unfortunately, sometimes boundaries are permanent because that person again is just not willing to put in the work. And it's harming and damaging you and robbing you of your peace and your joy. But sometimes boundaries are just temporary, and that's perfectly okay too. So,
well, I had I don't journal too often, but I have in the past, and I wrote down some things. And there's this certain individual that like really, just over the course of time, really affected me and hurt me. And I remember writing it down, just being like, look, I got to work towards forgiveness. And so I didn't know if that was going to lead to a conversation or whatever. So we set up the boundaries, and you'd be surprised over a course of time, the anger and the frustrations that I had dissipated. So time can do a lot of wonders. Just like we said, just getting a little bit of rest can do a lot of wonder. Well, so can just setting up a temporary boundary and giving it a little time, spending time reflecting. And when I go through that reflection, I love to look at myself first. A lot of times when we get frustrated in a situation, we easily like to jump to the other person, and we love to, oh, well, I wouldn't be angry if that person would just not be a jerk. I wouldn't be frustrated if they would just get out of my way, or if they would just listen to me, right? That's the easy answer. When in all reality, put the mirror up to yourself first. Right? In the Bible, it says, don't look at the speck in somebody else's eye when you have a whole plank in your own eye. And we do that all the time. So evaluate yourself first. See where are you lacking a little bit of patience? Or maybe you just misread the whole situation. You keep jumping to conclusions. Why are you doing that? Were you hurt in the past, and that's why you keep bringing up past damage? So self-reflect. Then when you've done that, taken that time, then you can go in with a clear conscience and start to evaluate what's really going on with that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like sometimes people just get so like clammy about the thought of like having a hard conversation. Like a lot of people hate confrontation, but like you'd be surprised how I would think that the majority of people in your life like want to hear your true honest feelings. They want to hear your feedback. Like they want to love you well by saying like, hey, yeah, if I did that, like let me know. Like I would love to be a better friend to you, a better wife to you, a better mom. Like I appreciate when our kids come to us and they say like, mommy, like when you did this, it hurt my, and I'm like, thank you for telling me, because I want to be the best mom I can be to you. And if you're not communicating with me and telling me how I can do better, I'll never get better. Because, we do things the best we can from our perspective, but sometimes we just miss the mark because we don't know how that person is going to respond to what we say or what we do. So when they communicate to us, like that's such a gift, such an opportunity to be like, let me love you the best way that I can by doing what you're asking me to do. So sometimes the conversations feel like so scary and so daunting and this and that, but I think you'd be surprised like when you just, again, use kindness. You don't come at the person and attack them and tear them down, but tell them how you're feeling, affirm them in what they do well, and then just say, hey, you could love me well by doing this. I think that you will see a lot of fruit from those conversations.
Agreed.
All right, unpopular opinion segment.
Actually, I'm ready to rock and roll on this one.
Go ahead.
All right, so my unpopular opinion for communication is slow down your pace. We live in a culture where everything is super fast. We need fast answers. I was sitting having a conversation with my brother, and we live in an age with Google, right? So instead of having to think about, we were asking a question about something with sports, and instead of thinking about it, I just hurried up and Googled it and found the answer instant. So in communication, time is your best friend. Time heals a lot of wounds. Slowing things down can be so healing. Not having to respond with a defense immediately can be so healing. thinking about, so somebody like me who's an external processor that for so long would just shoot off the hip without any filter, without thinking through anything, I've learned, okay, I have something in my head ready to go that I want to share. Let me slow down. Even if I just take a walk for 5 minutes, right? Let me just debrief. Let me fold some laundry for a minute or two. And then, do I still want to share that thing that was on my heart 5 minutes ago? And if it's still there, then sure, maybe you need to get it off your chest. But sometimes just walking away from a situation, slowing things down, just, yeah, working at a slower pace is just something that I think that is so countercultural, but so healing and so good for each individual.
Yeah, thinking through your words can definitely save you a lot of trouble, I feel like, in
Yeah.
relationships. Like, if you
I mean, you don't realize like how like I've done this everybody out there, please, look out for your boy. But I'm in a house with a lot of women here, and the only
4 about to be 5.
oh, and the only male I have is a hamster named Hammy. So me and Hammy sometimes have little powwows and whatnot. But if anybody knows how quickly you can screw up with just one word, I know. And I've done it so many times. Just one word that I just let out, and all of a sudden I got a household of women mad at me. So it's so much easier to just slow down, think about what you're going to say, and then make sure what you're saying has a filter to it. But, at the same time, we're in a household where we've appreciated honesty. So it's not that I'm not going to share truth or speak honestly. I'll still do that. But again, there's probably a better way to deliver your message if you just take the time to think it through.
Yeah, that's good. I think my
Do
unpopular...
you really believe that?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I think
thank
that's
you.
wise.
See, that was very affirming. See that? She's putting communication to a...
Putting it into practice.
There you go.
Okay, so my unpopular opinion is that when someone comes to you, it's helpful sometimes to ask them, like, do you want to vent or do you want me to give you a solution to this problem? Because I think a lot of times people just need to get some feelings off their chest and they want someone to just listen and be in it with them. They're not necessarily looking for advice or how to fix it. They want to know, like, hey, I just need to get these feelings off of my chest. I want you to sit in these feelings with me. I want you to tell me it's going to be okay. Tell me I can make it through this season or whatever is really upsetting me right now. And sometimes just don't say anything at all. So I think that's something that as a society, we feel like we always have to like give the smartest advice that we found on Google or, fix all, I know like men love to fix things. So like, a lot of times it's like, no, your woman just wants you to rub her back, wipe her tear, and tell her.
It just kills. It's so true, and I want to affirm that it's so true. But man, does it kill? I just want to fix it. Can I just fix it?
I know, but like, but sometimes feelings can't be fixed. Okay, so like if someone's having some like hard, dark feelings, like they just want you to sit in the feeling with them and tell them everything is gonna be all right.
Yeah, I mean, amen. But I just want to grab my 20-volt drill and get to work. I mean, that was the hardest thing for me to learn. And boy, how many apologies I could have saved if I heard that piece of advice and just, all right, let me rub your hair. Let me just, yeah, okay, and yep.
That's really hard, honey. I'm sorry you're going through that.
And it's true.
You guys can steal that line. All the men out there, steal this line. Honey, I know that is so hard. You're so strong.
Oh man,
that's a good one, isn't it?
That was really, yeah. We can like now with AI, we can use that to.
Cameron's whipping out his notepad as we speak. He's like, "Ooh, let me write that one down."
Yeah, well, you can take that and then use your own voice to then just automatically record it. So every time you're in a situation, and hopefully she can't see your face, but you just play that play that clip every time. What I love about that though is that basically I was in a tabletop conversation with a couple friends, and somebody was like, "Yeah, I'm going through this, and that," and you'd be so surprised how quickly everybody's. Well, when I was going through something, and it's like, oh my goodness, like everybody just they think they have their Harvard degrees and everything. Oh, well, I know how to start a fire. Oh, I know how to do this. Oh, I know, and it's like this isn't about you, right? This is about that person that's going through something, and in with Job's friends in the Bible. There was, eventually people were given advice, but the best thing they did was just sit alongside of him And so that's a lost art nowadays, just sitting alongside somebody, right? And that's what you're saying, even from a marriage, but you can do that in a friendship, in any relationship. Somebody's going through a hard time, stop trying to fix it. Stop trying to fix somebody, just
Well,
be
and
there.
even with Callie, like she has some big feelings with us, like leaving her. It's just a season of life that she's in. And if I were to be like, this is ridiculous. You're going to see us tomorrow. Like, be be a big girl. Stop crying. Like, that's just going to crush her even more. So it's like she's having these big feelings. She's upset, even though I know she's going to be okay. And her little 7-year-old brain, it's a big deal to her, right? Like, who am I to tell her, like, this isn't a big deal? To her, it is a big deal. So I just say, I know, honey, I'm sorry. This is hard. I'm so proud of you for being brave. And I affirm her, like, Mommy and Daddy will come back tomorrow. We are, we're going to come back for you. We're not going to leave you. I'm so proud of you. It's like affirming her feelings and just giving her encouragement instead of like tearing her down. And sometimes I just say, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. That's all I say. I'm sorry. Like that. And that's all. And it helps. It helps her feel better.
Yeah, agreed. That was a very, very good point. In a culture where everything's too fast, where everybody always has the answer for everything, try not to be the answer. Try not to speak fast.
And
slow
not
things
rush
down.
people through their feelings. Like, people are allowed to feel what they want to feel. There's no need to rush through those feelings, because if you rush through them, it's not going to take care of anything. They're just going to bury them. And we already talked about what happens when people bury their thoughts and their feelings.
Yeah, nothing good really happens.
No.
Nope.
A lot of resentment. All right. Well, that is our episode on communication. If you guys have any questions, you can DM us on our new Instagram.
Yeah, we have a new
page.
Instagram, Living Life with the Rogers Family. We'll get that up and running here in a little bit, so we'll share any little tips, snippets. You can give us your feedback on our episodes, and we look forward to the next podcast in our closet.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We will see you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Living Life with the Rogers with Cameron and Kira.
You can find us over on Instagram at Living Life with the Rogers Family. We love to post on there, and we will check in on DMs and comments and get back to you guys if you have any questions. And if you would like to hear future episodes, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See ya.